In a matter of hours, the Kurdish government in Erbil lost years of geopolitical gains when Iraqi forces recaptured the city of Kirkuk on October 16th. Since then, ethnic tensions have been high in the city. Thousands of families have fled for fear of sectarian blowback. Meanwhile, Kurdish politicians accuse one another of treason. However, what is less visible is the political intrigue between the Iraqi Kurdish political factions, which attests to the formation of the next round of geopolitical hostilities. My name is Shirvan and welcome to Caspian Report. Kirkuk, located in North Iraq, is a multi-ethnic city that is home to large communities of Kurds, Arabs, Turkmen, Assyrians, and other minorities. The city also sits at the crossroads of important trading routes and serves as a major source of hydrocarbon energy. The North Oil Company produces between 300,000 and 550,000 barrels of oil per day, with the potential to double those outputs. Hence, Kirkuk's location and the abundance of oil makes the city a highly prized asset in the post-ISIS geopolitical environment. Both Iraqi and Kurdish officials claim ownership of the city and the surrounding area. That said, Kirkuk lies outside the recognized borders of the Kurdistan regional government and technically falls under the jurisdiction of the central government in Baghdad. It was only in 2014 when Kurdish forces took control of Kirkuk from ISIS after the Iraqi army had retreated. For the next 3 years, the central government in Baghdad and the autonomous government in Erbil set aside their differences due to the hostilities with ISIS. In the meantime, the Kurdish government took exclusive control over the oil industry in Kirkuk. Yet Iraqi Kurdistan, being landlocked, required a regional ally to gain access to international markets. Turkey, which was eager to counter Iranian influence in Iraq, stepped up and forged a mutual beneficial partnership with Iraqi Kurdistan. What's more is that Iraqi Kurdistan expanded its autonomy and seized additional territories that were populated by their ethnic kin but remained outside of Erbil's jurisdiction. Evidently, Kurdish ambitions upset the officials in Baghdad, and as the threat of ISIS dissipated, old wounds resurfaced. Baghdad wanted to recover the Kurdish-controlled territories that were not part of the Kurdistan regional government. Iraqi and Kurdish policymakers tried, but failed to reach a diplomatic settlement, and the dispute set the two sides on a collision course. The stalemate between Baghdad and Erbil intensified at the backdrop of the Kurdish referendum on independence, which was held in late September 2017. Most of the Kurdish population in Kirkuk voted in favor of independence, but the city's non-Kurdish residents rejected the vote. Yet, regardless of the results, the electoral process proved to be a short-lived development when on October 12th, Iraqi armed forces and the Popular Mobilization Forces moved into the proximity of Kirkuk and a standoff ensued with the Kurdish Peshmerga. However, neither side sought to initiate hostilities. Iraqi Prime Minister al-Abadi didn't want to ignite a new sectarian conflict, and Kurdish President Barzani feared that fighting with Baghdad would discourage Western support for the Kurds. In the following days, both sides engaged in negotiations. Among the discussed issues was the freezing of the referendum results, the joint use of the Kirkuk military base, and the replacement of the city governor. No agreement was reached, and after 4 days of talks, the Popular Mobilization Forces, which is an autonomous conglomerate of Shia Muslim militias, forced the hand of al-Abadi. As such, the Prime Minister ordered the Iraqi forces to move into Kirkuk and secure federal installations in the region. What happened next is a matter of dispute, but basically in the early hours of October 16th, Iraqi security forces, led by Iranian commanders and possibly Iranian special forces, launched an assault on Kirkuk. Initially, some Peshmerga brigades resisted the advances, but the rivalry between the Kurdish factions led to the retreat of some Kurdish officials and commanders. Soon afterwards, the lack of ammunition forced the remaining Peshmerga forces to retreat as well. In the commencing hours, Iraqi forces swiftly recaptured critical infrastructure points in Kirkuk and the surrounding area, including the headquarters of the North Oil Company, the local oil fields, the Kirkuk military base, and the regional airfield. In addition to Kirkuk, Kurdish Peshmerga forces were also driven off Sinjar, Tel Avar, and in the southern areas of the Suleimania province. Seeking to avoid sporadic violence, al-Abadi ordered only the Iraqi army and law enforcement bodies to move into Kirkuk. He specifically held back the popular mobilization forces. Yet, regardless of al-Abadi's precautionary measures, thousands of civilians fled the city for fear of sectarian blowback. By some accounts, an estimated 100,000 Kurds left Kirkuk to Erbil and other Kurdish cities. Immediately following the loss of Kirkuk, officials in Erbil accused one another of treason. More to the point, President Barzani and the Kurdistan Democratic Party accused the Talabani family, which is one of the leading clans of the Patriotic Union of Kurdistan, of conspiring with authorities in Baghdad and Tehran to sell out the Kurds. Meanwhile, the latter accused Barzani of incompetence and overplaying his hand. For years, the Kurdish political landscape in Iraq has been dominated and divided by the Kurdistan Democratic Party and the Patriotic Union of Kurdistan, which are better known by their abbreviations, the KDP and the PYQ respectively. Relations between the two have never been good. In fact, in the mid-1990s, the two sides fought each other in a civil war. The Barzani family and the KDP leads the Iraqi Kurdish government, and their support base is concentrated in the west of Iraqi Kurdistan. Meanwhile, the Talabani clan is among the leaders of the PUK, which is more splintered than the KDP. Their influence is concentrated in the east, with Kirkuk sitting south of their proximity. The rivalry between the two factions runs deep and affects most of the institutions in Iraqi Kurdistan, including the distribution of energy revenues and the fealty of Kurdish Peshmerga forces. In technical terms, Peshmerga brigades answer to the government in Erbil. In practice, however, the loyalty of the Peshmerga is divided between the KDP and the PYQ. Even the companies that provide the military equipment for the brigades have splintered loyalties. This military division played a fundamental role in the swift advances of Iraqi forces in Kirkuk. More specifically, the PUK-based Peshmerga brigades received orders to withdraw from Kirkuk and allow for their Iraqi counterparts to take control of some installations. In this context, it's important to understand that the deceased Jalal Talabani, the former leader of the PUK, served as the president of Iraq for nearly a decade. So he forged close relations between his clan and the central government in Baghdad. Barzani's party lacks such close connections in Baghdad. The Talabani faction believed that Barzani's referendum in late September was a power grab that threatened the long-term legitimacy of the PUK. As such, it is believed that the Talabani faction reached a deal with Baghdad to push back Barzani and the KDP from encroaching on their turf. This rundown is supported by the fact that Bafal Talabani, the son of the late Jalal Talabani, publicly proposed to jointly govern Kirkuk with Baghdad prior to the loss of the city. It is likely that the Talabani clan bargained for some concessions but never intended to fully concede the city. However, during the negotiations, Shia militias forced Prime Minister al-Abadi to take action, and amidst the confusion and division, Iraqi forces noticed an opportunity and acted on it. As most of the PUK Peshmerga brigades retreated, within hours, the KDP brigades retreated as well. Regardless of whether the loss of Kirkuk was negotiated or unintended, tensions between the KDP and the PUK are at an all-time high. The former accuses the latter of treason, and the strategic failure in Kirkuk has deepened the divisions among the Kurds. In fact, at the present, the conditions are ripe for a new internal Kurdish conflict. In the coming weeks, the actions of the KDP and PUK officials will determine how far the situation will escalate. For now, the swift loss of Kirkuk puts the internal divisions of the Kurds on full display. This was a Caspian report by me, Shirvan. Special thanks to our contributors on Patreon for giving us the means to produce these reports. You can help us to remain independent of sponsors by joining our crowdfunding platform on patreon.com/Caspian report. However, if you do not have the means, you can also help us by sharing this report on the social media. In any case, thank you for your time and Sarol.